Hey there, Virgo. Hey there, Virgo. How you doing? So this is the forecast taking you from the new moon in your own sign. The first one, there's two of them, two new moons in Virgo over the next lunar month. But yeah, this is the forecast taking you from the new moon in Virgo in your own sign right the way through to the total lunar eclipse, the full moon in Pisces on the 7th of September. So from the 23rd of August to the 7th of September. Now, as usual, I'm going to be looking at what these planetary pictures are meaning to you as somebody with Virgo ascendant. If you want something a lot more general about all of the intricacies of the planetary picture, like a much greater depth, then I recommend you check out my big scoop as well, and the link for that is below. But anyway, what I'm going to be doing is looking at your next 2 weeks from the focus of your sacred vision, because I think the next 2 weeks are absolutely about creating a sacred vision for yourself. I also think this is the gateway to the eclipse season. This new moon in Virgo is incredibly important. And so I want to show you how they are important. Now, if you're new to this channel, hi, my name's Louisa Tanner-Munson. Welcome to Feel Good Astrology. I hope to use astrology in a way that creates a feeling of clarity and hopefulness. I'm a Sagittarius, so it's the hopefulness that I'm hoping that you get a real feel for with this. So anyway, as usual, I'm going to start with my slides that keep me on track. And you'll see here that I've got 3 stages and 3 questions because I've broken it down. The new moon in Virgo is very much about purity. We're going to purify our life in some way. It's an invitation to cleanse, get really sacred with our choices, and to do things with a feeling of, grace, discernment, and purpose. So this is a very important new moon for you, and this is happening in your first house of your birth chart. So it's all tied in with your identity. Then halfway through, around the 31st of August and the 1st of September, we're going into a breakthrough phase where things are, I think, lots of interesting new developments are coming up. It's also a time when our body is really talking to us if we give it half the chance. And then we're coming up to the time of the total lunar eclipse in Pisces, your opposite sign, in the 7th house, and it's like a wave of emotional energy. And I think this could be used to get inspired. Now, I always have a sentence that I think captures this 2-week period. And for me, it's about clearing our vessel, whether that's our body, our mind-body system, our home even, our car, and then letting the cracks appear. That's about the breakthrough. And then the inspiration, we're clearing a space to be filled with divine waters. Now, I did realize that if you've got cracks in your vessel, the waters are going to flood through. So I'm now thinking you need to fill it with divine sealant or something like that. So maybe you seal it before the divine waters come in. But yeah, I think you get where I'm going with this. And I always like to ask big questions. And so these 3 questions I'm going to be asking throughout. I'm going to be considering them as I do this reading for you. And right at the end, I will come back to these questions and answer them for you to the best of my ability. Where in my life am I idealizing and polishing the surface, but ignoring the root? And I think this is quite an interesting one for Virgos, because ordinarily Virgoans tend to be quite neat and tidy. They're very good at appearances, in fact, even though they're ruled by Mercury, which doesn't have that much to do with appearances, but there is this ability to keep things quite tidy and to make things look very, very clean and clear. I'm thinking that this double new moon in Virgo is going to take you much deeper, so we'll explore how. The midway through, what old wounds may flare up? How can I respond with compassion rather than compulsion? How can I also turn this flood of emotions, this is the time of the total lunar eclipse, into inspiration instead of overwhelm? Lots of people get very overwhelmed when there's a full moon, in particular full moon in Pisces, no less. Yikes. I'm going to bring up 2 charts in a second, but just before I do, I just want to say thank you to everybody who sponsors my channel or who has sponsored my channel in all the different ways that you do. I really, really appreciate you. Also, there's people there who are members of my community. So yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Anyway, these are the two charts. So the first one is the new moon in Virgo, and you can see there's the new moon pointing right here at the first house. And actually, at this point, it's a good moment to suggest that, you know, I'm using a whole sign Western traditional model to do this chart. You know, so what I mean by that is we have one sign per house. But most likely, and if you're like me, you'll look at your birth chart and you'll see that there's two signs in your first house. For instance, if you use Placidus as a charting system. So if with your Virgo ascendant, you notice that you've got Virgo in your first house and also Libra, then it's also a good idea to listen to the Libra forecast, because there'll be so many more treasures in there for you. And the sort of combination of the two will give you just what you need to know. So hopefully that's helpful. But anyway, let's get back. So you can see here, the new moon has this great big like yod pointing at it. A yod is that triangle, that green dashed triangle pointing right at this new moon. And, you know, in a lunar month, on the 21st of September, the second new moon in Virgo in your first house is at 29 degrees. So it's from 0 to 29 degrees. Seeing as it's such an important one for you, it might also be worth having a listen to my new moon in Virgo forecast. I do give a heads up for all signs of the zodiac. They get their own little piece within it. But I'm really talking about sort of opening up this whole eclipse gateway, because between this new moon, there's going to be a total lunar eclipse here and then a solar eclipse. So within this month, there are two eclipses, one in your first house and one in your seventh house. So it's really activating a lot for you right now. It's really important. There's a lot going on. And this is at the level of your identity and also the level of your relationships. So there's a lot going on between like everything for you and everything for everyone else. There's a very strong theme. So we're definitely going to be looking at that. This is the full moon chart. Look at it. It looks really quite angry, doesn't it? With these great big oppositions. These red lines are showing where there's tension and difficulties and challenges and things to work out. And so you can see there's a lot going on. You'll see by the time that that Mercury comes into your own sign, you know, Mercury is your ruler. I mean, this is a great thing, actually. By the time this full moon in Pisces comes along, your ruler is back in your first house. That's going to be a real thumbs up for you. And he goes into your first house on the 2nd of September. So that's definitely something to look forward to. To me, it really feels like there's a feeling of arrival when your ruling planet comes in your first house. It really feels like you're back in your groove. So I think that's going to be really good for you. There are two other planetary changes as well. We've got Venus going into Leo on the 25th, out of the sign of Cancer. And to me, this is indicating that there's a restfulness about you as well over the next couple of weeks. There's this feeling of it doesn't matter what you're working on, you still need to just be peaceful. And that, I think, is really the bottom line for you. If you can't be peaceful, then you've really not got any progress at all. So I do think the search for peace is of, well, it's a huge moving point for you right now. It's huge. It's very motivational for you to find peace. So do peaceful things as much as you can during this time. We've also got Saturn retrograding out of your 8th house and into the 7th. To be fair, I actually think you'll prefer it with Saturn dipping back into Pisces. He had been in Pisces since 2023, March 2023. He's coming back for another 4 or 5 months before he goes back. Now, this is going to have a bit of I think this is going to create a little bit more seriousness about your relationships. And that's going to really strengthen this full moon in Pisces. It's going to give it so much more impact when it comes along. On the 7th, it's going to feel like everything to do with your partner, if you've got a partner, or the people close nearby to you, you know, the people who are in your life. It's going to feel like there's a lot going on with them, and I'll explain more about that as we go through this. What I will say is, if you're interested in Saturn in Pisces, I've already done a forecast for Saturn going into Pisces for you as a Virgo, and if you keep watching to the end, right at the end there'll be an invitation to watch it. It will automatically go through. You just have to click, I think, OK or something, I don't know, but it will line up for you nicely. Right, let's dive in then. So obviously, at the time of the new moon, there's this impetus, I think, to get clearer about your identity, to get a much stronger sense of what you're about, and let go of all the things that you're really not about. The last month, I think, has been very instrumental for you in recognizing all those old patterns that no longer hold any weight. And you know, when they came up, I think, well, actually, like one of these pressures, like pushing you to, I think, get a new start is Pluto down here in the 6th house. To me, there's some very strong energies for you to revolutionize your life and to do it in a very, very different way to how it's been done before. Now, this is going to be difficult for Virgos, like for you, because the Virgo energy is all about managing things really quite beautifully, to be quite neat and tidy, to be orderly, to have everything fit for purpose. If something doesn't fit right, if it's not working, it gets fixed, it gets reused, it gets recycled. I mean, you're not one to waste things. And so, you know, Pluto coming in here, you could ask, well, how much more could I transform to make my life really smooth and trouble-free? How much more can I do to make it flow? And actually, I don't think Pluto coming into your 6th house is there to make it flow. I actually think Pluto is coming in here to show you that you need a bit more depth, or you need things to be much more in alignment with what your soul's calling out for. I think also you need to embrace some of the dirt, or you might need to embrace some of the things that you have been fearful of. So for instance, if you feared chaos, or if you feared difficulty, or if you feared poverty, or quite rightly so, like anything that you feared, Pluto here, I think, is encouraging you to develop more resiliency. So it's not about, I'm managing my life and therefore everything's good. Pluto here is actually shaking you a little bit and encouraging you to get resilient in a different way. You know, so your resiliency isn't about all of the activities you're doing, but the resiliency is something inside of you, which is a much deeper thing. It's much deeper learning. And can you imagine how much more confident you would be if you could absolutely keep your peace and know that you can get through anything, no matter how dark it might seem? To me, that's a very sort of valuable question. You might also find, you know, Pluto coming in here can sometimes make us quite worn out, but also realize where we've held on to things. You know, so a lot of dis-eases, i.e., you know, if you're feeling you're getting poorly, Pluto usually shows you what you've been resisting. And so anywhere where you've been resisting feeling something, resisting dealing with something, Pluto's just going to put it on the table. So you might find there's a lot like coming up and putting itself on the table right now in front of you. And yeah, you might not want to face it. Similarly, Saturn and Neptune going into your 8th will have, put the cat amongst the pigeons in terms of how you feel about yourself in relation to other people. You know, the 8th house I always think of as a house of baggage. It's a place where your partner's money lives, and that includes your family's money, inheritances, also tax bills, loans and mortgages, and anything that where you and some other entity shares a resource or some kind of value. But it's not just physical value, as in financial value, it's also how they value you, and also how they judge you, and also what expectations they push on you, where you might feel guilted, shamed, embarrassed, how they might feel resentful of you, jealousy. It's a place of some very, very strong emotions. And similarly, you'll be judging them and putting stuff on them, throwing guilt, catching guilt. You know, we're all at it in some way, shape or form. And so Saturn and Neptune coming into this house when you've already had Chiron going through it for God knows how long, since 2017, 2018. To me, it feels like there's a lot of old business that's been coming up, bubbling up. And so to me, with the old business and possibly resistances in your body and resistances in your life to make you face things, I mean, this actually really talks about where in my life am I idealizing or polishing the surface instead of healing the root? To me, Pluto is really getting you to grapple at the root. And so these two external forces, these forces are trying to model you into like breaking free of your old belief systems so that you can recreate yourself. And so I do think you're under pressure to perform in a new way and to be a lot more, well, the Virgo New Moon is there to bring out your integrity, your authenticity, to really get you to know who you are and to start showing it more. So for instance, if you realize that you're starting to let go of how you've been thinking about yourself, the chances are that will affect how you look, how you dress, how you relate to people. You know, when we have a big sort of breakthrough in our energies, it always shifts us in quite a big way. So yeah, I do think you're going to be really feeling it in your body. And this could be a great time for somatic movements, you know, to help move some of those crystallized energies within your body in a new way. So I think this is a really important part of what's going on for you. Now, there are a couple of really strong days that I just want to point out. The first one is on the 26th. In fact, I would say from the 26th to the 31st, it's a very, very strong time. You know, we've got this waxing moon phase. The moon is getting bigger and bigger each day. It's not actually growing, but it looks like there's more, well, there is more visible light from the moon each day. And from the 26th to the 31st, it feels like things are growing and moving very, very quickly. And so what you've got here is Venus working beautifully with Saturn and also with Uranus. And Uranus and Neptune during that time are going to go into an exact sextile. To me, this is a time when we're expecting miracles. You know, Neptune is about oneness and high level creativity. Uranus is about consciousness and how that can really change in a vibrant way. And can awaken us in quite an incredible way. Both of them working with Venus is really lovely. And then Saturn is also working beautifully with Venus. And so Venus, who I've mentioned already, is going into Leo, or she will be in Leo at that exact time. You know, she's going to be looking for peace. And so, you know, on top of this searching for your new expression, your new identity that matches the energy of who you are now, I also think that Venus is retiring into peace. And the more you're retiring into peace, the more you're able to change your consciousness, or the new consciousness can come in, and the more that sense of oneness around all things of shame, blame, guilt and anger. I really think it's time for a breakthrough. And then, you know, by the time we get to the 31st and also the 1st of September, we've got this really strong Mercury trine Chiron energy. Now, you can't see it here because it's happening in between this moon and this moon. So you won't see it drawn here, but Mercury is reaching out to Chiron in a trine, and that is really giving you information about anywhere where you've been insecure, most likely because you've had expectations put on you, old shames from childhood and embarrassments about your performance, and how they relate to you at a very sort of private level, how they've affected you. Now, you know, having Venus and Mercury in this 12th house up until the 2nd, you know, obviously then Mercury's moving forwards, but it's really going to give you a head start to decipher what's going on in your body. Excuse me. I hope this doesn't result in a whole series of sneezing fits. So yeah, Venus and Mercury. Oh, hang on. I think it is. Okay, I'm back. Oh, don't you just hate that? So yeah, with Mercury and Venus in your 12th house, it's really going to tune you into what your body needs. And actually, this is one of the things I would really recommend around the time of the new moon in Virgo. The Virgo energy does have a really strong need to be healthy. And so with this new moon and then the next new moon, if I was in your shoes, I think I might go into more of a meditative state with my body and start to, with breath, feel and sense where you might feel some tightness or some stiffness or something just feels a little bit off, not quite right. And kind of imagine that I'm sitting in this. Sorry, I have to have my eyes closed when I do something like this because it helps me really focus on what I'm saying. And I'm pointing down here, like really sit into that energy. Imagine that you're actually there and like take a look around at what's going on in your body and what do you notice? Is there a little video playing? Is there a color, a shape, a size? Is there an intensity, a heat, a smell? Like really notice what's going on with your senses and ask yourself, ask your body, ask whatever is represented in that area, what's going on? How can I help? What do you need to tell me that you haven't yet shared with me? And so I think, and you can also do this in parts of your body that feel great as well. I mean, don't just like zero in on areas that feel tight. There will be also areas that feel really at ease and you can connect in your body that way. But the more you're talking with your body throughout this whole month, I think the better off you are, because with Venus and Mercury in the 12th house, your body's going to talk back and I think you're going to be able to hear it. And, the body doesn't talk necessarily in words. When I hear my body talk, actually it's never in words. It's always in images. I see it like playing like a video, but obviously we're all different and you'll have your own way of coding and working with this. But I think this is going to be really, really helpful. So the 26th to 31st is a really deep time for you to really knuckle down in and find out what's going on and what you can release. And that's great because by the time Saturn comes back into Pisces in the 7th house, to me, there's a new feeling of purpose to have better relationships with people. And you might know actually what part of you has played into your relationships. It's always very easy. And I know I moan a little bit about the relationships around me, how I experience different people. And sometimes I feel like I've got no choice but to experience people in a certain way. It's taken me years to realize actually I do have the choice. It's only me that experiences people in a particular way because it's only me that's in this body right now. We always have the choice. And so Saturn is coming back and bringing a bit of maturity and some interesting learning that's come up, since the end of May when he went into Aries. So I do think there's a lot coming up. But like I said, there's another video dedicated to Saturn in Pisces that you can watch if you feel the need to. So let's get a bit closer then to the full moon. So, from the start of this forecast right the way through, this is at the changing point around the time of Mercury trine Chiron and Saturn going into Pisces. You'll see by this point, the moon is in Sagittarius, it's in your 4th house. And so during this point in time, I do think you're going to be listening to yourself and hearing things. Your instincts are going to be really, really strong, deeply, deeply intuitive, which might surprise you. But get ready because as the moon is coming up the other side and getting ready for this total lunar eclipse, which is in a conjunction with the North Node, as all eclipses are, this full moon in Pisces is going to be really bringing in this wave of emotion, a really, really strong sort of like, it's the divine waters that I was talking about. But, if you're the kind of person that gets highly emotional around times of the full moon, or if you get tired, or if you get off your balance a little bit around those times, and this is a time to watch out for, because full moons in the 7th house can be great at opening people up, in particular your loved ones. But will you have the presence of mind? Will you have the patience? Will you have the calm assurance that everything is okay to be able to deal with someone that's newly cracked open? See, whatever is going through our 7th house is showing us what we're learning from our partners. And I always think that the 7th house is actually a massive projection screen, because everything over here is what you see and identify in yourself. And everything that you don't identify in yourself, you automatically are seeing in the people around you. And so you might see that the people around you are highly emotional, irrational, creative, nonsensical, and lots of different words. But maybe it's also you who is actually feeling really quite out of your depth, quite overwhelmed. So be very wary of, putting all the emotion on your partner, making them the crazy person. It's something to be shared for sure. But here's the other alternative that I would like to serve to you as, I guess, a serving suggestion for this Pisces new moon, and that is Pisces full moon total lunar eclipse. It's in a conjunction with the North Node, and the North Node is going through your 7th house, really showing that from January, when the North Node came into Pisces, and until I think July of 2026, the North Node is going to be teaching you something really strong about your relationships. And if you can remember what was going on 18, 19 years ago, you might remember what you were learning then about relationships. It's a similar thing going on right now. And to me, this is about integrating the relationship, realizing that like everything we're seeing in the people around us are projections of things that we can't accept in ourselves. So when we're putting blame, shame, guilt and anger on the people around us, it could be quite helpful to see, well, yeah, where am I doing this? And it's not always that obvious. There are some, it's not always obvious. And sometimes it's easy when you've got a coach around you that can say, oh my God, if you heard yourself, please check that out. I do this quite a lot with myself, and I've got a few people around me actually that will call me out, which is quite helpful. But yeah, this is a time when your projections are going to be so much stronger than usual. But whatever is occurring around the time of this lunar eclipse is meant to move you forwards on your journey. It's meant to be evolving, helping you to evolve in your relationships, not blow a great big hole in the middle of it, because there's upset feelings or overwhelm and neither of you can cope with it. So to me, this is your invitation to stay calm, not disassociated, but calm. This is your opportunity to see your partner with compassion, or the people around you with compassion, because they might be feeling the things that you're not prepared to feel at the moment. They might be showing you how painful it is to feel sometimes. But they're not to be, what's the word? Maybe those words are a bit strong there. I think the more you can be compassionate for them, the more you'll learn about compassion for yourself. But, the 1st house and the 7th house, this Virgo energy and this Pisces energy, it's like a seesaw, but you're all dealing with the same issue. And right now, with these eclipses coming by on your 1st and 7th house, it's teaching you about your relationship to yourself, and from that, how that relates to your relationships. So whether you're learning it from your relation, like, this is how I am in my relationships, this is what I'm learning in myself, you might learn it, this is what I'm learning in myself, and I'm going to apply it to my relationships. It almost doesn't matter what you're learning, where your starting place is in your learning, but this total lunar eclipse is here to change the way you are with your partners, and to have a different relationship to yourself. So wherever you're working from, it will have a knock-on effect. So yeah, how can you, I'm going to go to the questions now. I feel like that came out in a really clunky way, and I apologize if it has. I'm doing these in one stream, apart from when I paused it to sneeze. And so I speak as it comes up. This isn't scripted, that's why I've got these prompts. So in the first thing that I was asking about was, where in my life am I idealizing or polishing instead of healing the root? You might, I wonder if, you're learning about what happens when things are too perfect, and that you're meant to be seeing things from a more emotional perspective, but not an overwhelmed emotional perspective. I think you're learning how to deal with things when they're not perfect, when they're not clean, when you're learning to see your shadow side, and also learning to see the shadow sides of other people. So I think that's getting to the root. What old wounds may flare, and how can I respond with compassion rather than compulsion? I think when insecurities come, because you feel separate from your partner, that can feel very, very sore. I didn't actually say as well, we've also got on the day of the full moon, the eclipse, there's also this very strong opposition between Mars and Chiron in a T-square with Jupiter. Now, this is important because Mars is showing your feelings of self-value and self-worth here in the 8th house, and Chiron is showing the pain of how other people are seeing you. And maybe the battle of feeling worthy when you think you're being judged. And then Jupiter here is inflaming both of them from this third-party perspective. It's almost as if around this time, you know, mirrored between you and your partner, it feels like you can't both have a higher level of self-esteem at the same time. So what I see could be more compassionate is how can you both not both be right, but both be happy for each other's peace. How can you, I know it sounds really cliched, like a win-win, but like all rising with the same tide. To me, it feels like with you know, Saturn and Neptune here and Pluto here, it almost feels like there's this, I'm either up and you're down, or you're down and I'm up. Or well, I think I did that right. You know, but how can you actually both get on this level? How can you both do really well? How can you support each other? And I think the more you get yourself on an even keel and feel compassion for yourself, the more you'll be able to feel compassion for your partner, who is also in this up and down kind of ride. And then lastly, how can I turn a flood of emotions, i.e. the total lunar eclipse, into inspiration instead of overwhelm? I think if you've been working in your body and you've been listening to your body and noticing where there are funny sensations, I also think if you've been really listening internally to yourself, you know, with Venus and also Mercury starting off in your 12th house, I think you will have quite a sensation of what's the word, like relief and humility, and a recognition of how sacred your heart is, how beautiful your heart is, how peaceful your heart is. It's very easy for us to live in the perfection of our rising sign, and there is no other perfect rising sign than Virgo. You know, the Virgo package always looks so well put together and so beautifully aligned. You know, you do good first impressions, put it that way. And actually, I think you can, without sounding like I'm judging, I'm just talking from the astrology. I think it's really easy to forget that you've actually got a very delicate heart. You've got this real beautiful innocence, a real sort of hopefulness, which maybe you armor with appearances. And so actually, I think the flood of emotions can turn into inspiration because you realize just how beautiful a human you are. And so that's where I think you'll be, maybe tears of joy when you have that relief, when you're kind of rejoining yourself again and not fighting yourself. And, you know, if you don't do that, I do think the emotions could be quite overwhelming. So this felt like quite a deep message from my perspective. And I don't know how it felt for you. I'm obviously hoping it felt good because that would be terrible if it didn't. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this forecast and you would like more of this kind of guidance, then really you're so welcome to join my membership. This is the place where I share my deeper insights and I do regular updates Monday to Friday. Every 2 weeks there's a financial forecast for every sign of the zodiac, and also a love one as well. Maybe you want to go even deeper with a personal reading, and of course feel free to book one of those with me. You'll see the links below in the video description. You'll also see I've put links in my on my channel page in the description, so you can just book directly into my diary. It's really, really easy. So just invite me to work with you, and I'll be delighted to. I'd love to work with you. So yeah, hopefully that's been helpful. And yeah, hope to catch you another time real soon. And if you want to listen to that Saturn in Pisces episode, then just keep watching. Lots of love.